Hi, everybody. Will here from Dog Show Tips. You're gonna love this. This is an interview with Paul Wilson. Paul Wilson has been a friend of mine for years. He breeds border terriers. He had some whippets, and he was a huntsman, a professional huntsman for the London Hunt Club here in Ontario. And then now he's the professional huntsman in Keswick at the Keswick Hunt Club in Central Virginia, and he's going to give us an insight to his life as a huntsman, and it's amazing. You're going to love this. So sit back and relax and listen to Paul, and he'll tell you all about his life with the hounds. Hi, everybody. Will Alexander here with from Dog Show Tips with this week's interview chair, my very good friend Paul Wilson. Now, I've known Paul. He used to live in Canada. And he was the professional huntsman at the London and Hamilton country clubs. Is that right?
Hunt clubs, yeah, hunt and
Hunt clubs.
country clubs, yeah, yeah.
And now he is the professional huntsman at the Keswick Hunt Club in Central Virginia. I want to find out exactly what Paul does, but I met Paul through dog shows, like whippets and border terriers, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A
How's
little
it
bit
going,
of
Paul?
everything. It's going good, Will. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Hasn't been a long time, so
Been too long.
yeah.
Been too long. I keep meaning to try and get up there. I'm, Joanne and Al, big mentors of mine, and they said to me, "You're going to come up to the border terrier, the Canada border terrier national next year in Nova Scotia." And I'm kind of tempted, actually. Kind of tempted. I'd
Sure,
like to
that'll
go.
be great, Nova Scotia.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been out east, so I'd love to go. And we've got a good friend that used to live in London, and she moved out there last year. So
Yeah, that's where
so
Patrick lives too. Patrick Mudge lives in New
yeah,
Brunswick. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, Patrick's gone out there. Everyone in Ontario went out to flipping
for a
Nova
while
Scotia.
anyway, and some of them came back.
Yeah, Colin went out there for a while, and then he came back. I'm like,
Yeah,
holy crap! There's not going to be anyone left in Ontario at that rate. Everyone jumped ship.
yeah. Anyway, tell the viewers exact. I want to know your daily routine, but first of all, let's tell them exactly what you do, what you are.
So my job is professional huntsman. Is I look after. I have right now. I have around 70 foxhounds. These are American foxhounds, and I basically maintain and look after all of those hounds, plus um, all of the all of the horses as well. So we have 4 horses here present. Um, and I have a girl that looks after the 4 horses. She's our barn manager, and I kind of oversee everything with the horse side of things to make sure everything's, the horses are fit and ready for the job that they need to be done. And then the hounds, daily we go in there around about 7 o'clock, 7:30, depending on the time of the year. This time of year, it's around about that time. In the summer, we go in there earlier just to try and get ahead of the heat, and go wash down, strip all the beds, wash them all down. They go out in a big area, a big grass area, grass yard area, way off the kennels, and I'll send you a video later on so people can see. So they have a big atrium inside, which have big raised concrete beds that we put cedar shavings on, and the hounds live communally, so they all live in together. So there'll be as many as 55, 60 in the one big kennel at one time, and then we have another big yard that the juvenile pups go in, so that they're not annoying the old hounds, especially during hunting season. They don't want, juvenile hounds jumping all over them and just generally annoying them. So they go in a
You ever get any issues with mix-ups?
No, not really. I mean, the biggest when you get bitches coming into heat, they all the boys start getting a little stupid, how that goes. Um, but they'll let you know in plenty of time. I mean, soon as the bitches are even remotely ready to be kind of bleeding or anything like that, the dog hounds are on it. So they get taken away. We have like a separate wing on the backside that has two, three, four separate pens, and then I have a pen specifically. We call them lodges. It's the old English term. We have a separate lodge for the hot bitches, and the bitches go in there for 21 days. And that's basically the only time we really get any squabblings. Every now and again they'll have the odd tiff, but I mean, you're a hound guy as well, beagles. I mean, for the most part, they pretty much enjoy each other's company. They sleep together, they hunt together. We feed them on big troughs, so they all eat together. People are always quite astounded by how good they all get along when we're feeding. Like it's like, oh, I could never do this with, you know, golden retrievers or something, or huskies or something. There's 60 hounds all feeding off the troughs, and they'll get a little bit, rambunctious and stuff, but for the most part, they really do get along pretty good.
It's amazing.
So we go in the morning, do all the wash down. Wash down. We have big septic tanks. Everything gets washed into the septic tanks, so there's no real smell. Once or twice a month, I have a big industrial steam cleaner, and everything gets steam cleaned out just to keep all the bugs and nasties out of the way. Um, and then once we wash down, bring them back in. I'll set out the troughs for feeding, and then slowly, one by one, I let the hounds in to feed. So I base it upon body condition and knowing those specific hounds as to how quickly they eat and body condition as well. So aggressive fat ones get to lick the troughs, and the ones that sit there and take 3 hours to eat and just sniff every kibble, and those they go in there first. So it's an art in itself. When you got 70 hounds and you
I'm
look at them
sure.
and you see them and they're all fairly well balanced, you know that you're doing an okay job. You sometimes see people that are in over their heads, and they've got some that are fat, some that are skinny. It's almost an art in itself being able to breed to feed 70 hounds at one go and make sure. But that's that connection, knowing the hounds and how they feed and which ones thrive. There's ones that you just instinctively pull them off straight away. They'll all wait at the door and you call their names and they'll come to you, and then they go through the gateway and then they start eating. So there's some that, like I say, as soon as you get in there, you automatically just pull them off because they go in there and they go, it'll take them 20 minutes to get what the fat ones takes like 3 gulps of food.
Yeah, I know what beagles are like, so I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean those latter ones are a bit like me. They're what we call good doers. Like, they just need to sniff the fresh air and they're getting fat, right? So not so bad. So once they're fed, um, we wash all the troughs down, everything, and then the hounds are held in the main atrium in the middle in the feeding area. Then we'll take them for a walk. We'll go for a walk up the road.
The whole pack.
Yeah, the whole pack. So, which it's getting harder and harder. Where the kennels are, I call it the triangle of death. So, I don't know if you can hear it on the mics or not, but to the back of us is quite a main railway track. So we've got railway lines to the back of the property. Then there's a road comes up the front of the property, and then another road to the other side. And we have Keswick Hall, which is quite a major hotel and golf course to the back of us. So there's traffic backwards and forwards all the time, which is not ideal. But it makes for the hounds. The hounds are very responsive when we're going along the road. They all know the commands. If I put my whip out to the right, it means that all the hounds move to the left, and you say get over, and they'll get over, and they'll get up onto the verge and get out of the way of the vehicles, and the vehicles can get past, and then we just carry on with our walk. So, I mean, when you're doing it multiple times in the morning, they just instinctively know. So, but it's
Are
still.
you
It's still,
walking or are you horseback at that point?
no, we just walk
Okay.
on an everyday exercise, and we just walking. And
I may
so
have to come and visit, Paul.
yeah, come on over, come on over.
Yeah.
We welcome anybody. I mean, it's a very open book. I mean, what you see is what you get. But we walk them out, like especially now during the hunting season, we walk them out at so many days a week, and then when we finish, so our season starts in early August, and we'll hunt what we call staff hunt, and so it's just myself and two or three other guys just training the young pups. We'll start in early August, and we'll go out probably 5 mornings, 5 mornings a week, 4 or 5 mornings depending. And we'll go out into the cornfields and basically let the young hounds, and we'll take only a few hounds at a time, a few puppies, sorry. The older hounds, we'll take plenty of the older hounds, and then a couple of the puppies until they kind of get the gist of what's going on. So it's a lot of the times we'll put them in big old cornfields, and the foxes tend to live in the cornfields because there's bugs and stuff like that. And they'll chase them round and round and round and round in the cornfields for a couple of hours until he goes in a hole. Basically, that's that early on in the season is basically what happens, and it's brilliant for the puppies because the puppies hear the other hounds speaking in full cry, and they run to it, and it sucks them in, and they get the gist of it. So we go from August through till Labor Day. And then the what we call the mounted fields are allowed to come out then. So we'll start that's informal season. So then we'll get the whole field out, and then it switches to just 3 days a week: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And then we'll run that until the third week in October, which is our official opening meet. So up until that point, everyone wears what they call rat catcher clothing, which is tweeds and whatnot, browns and tweeds and stuff like that. And then when the official formal season comes in, the gentlemen wear the red coats and the ladies wear blue or black.
So you take members out on these hunts? Is that what you do?
Yeah. So basically, the club structure is, so we here at Keswick we have a board of governors. The board of governors appoint the masters. So the masters basically oversee the financial cost of things, hiring staff, and the welfare of the hounds and the horses, making sure that they employ the right people. So right now, currently, we have 3 joint masters, all guys, and they basically employ myself. I have a guy in the kennels called Mike who's been here forever. He's been here like 25 years, and then Tony Ann who started with us back in May. So there's the 3 of us. So they employ the staff. So then we have the staff, and then the members pay a fee to be part of this hunt club. So for a family membership, it's like $2,500. So that's like a full family and plus kids, and then they have like an interim age for like up to, I think it's like 30 or something like that, 18 to 30, and then a kids membership, and then just a single membership. And I think just a single membership's like $1,700, but it's included in that we go out 3 times a week. So it's probably close to 80, 90 days hunting a year. They have lots of social events, lots of parties and stuff like that. So we have, I think probably around about 250, 260 members. So it brings in a lot of money, but there's a lot of cost there. We got like everything, insurances and all of that kind of stuff, and vehicles and bills and whatnot. So they get, to be honest, for what they get, when you consider like horse showing or dog showing, they get quite a lot of bang for their buck, really. But that's the basics. So I mean, so if you're a member, you're allowed to come out once the season starts. You can come out as many times as you want. So we'll have what we call a meat card. So we have each hunt club throughout America and Canada has a designated area they're allowed to hunt. So they've registered what they call a country. So Keswick Hunt Countries, X, Y, and Z, and all of those areas within there. So we have several areas throughout our hunt country that we have meeting points, and we every like twice a year we send out to all the members a card with all of the lists of dates and where we'll meet at certain points within the hunt country. So, one day we'll be at a meet called Mount Sharon, and that incorporates all the area in and around Orange, the town of Orange, and we'll hunt all of that area in that, and then next week we'll be in another area down in Louisa County. There's another big area there that we hunt. So it's different. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 different areas that we hunt, and they're all different. Topographically, they're all different. There's some flat land, some more mountainous areas. So it's a big diversity, and people can just pick and choose which ones they want to come to or not come to. And then when we go out on a hunt, so I'm in charge. I'm the guy with the red jacket. All the hounds follow me. Then I have what we call whipper-ins, which are my assistants, basically the huntsman's assistants, and they'll make sure that their primary objective is to make sure that the hounds are safe. So they'll get out what we call on point and make sure, like if we're hacking along the road or trotting along the road, that the vehicle stop and slow down and make sure the hounds are safe in that respect. And then when we get hunting, they look out for the foxes, basically, so they can tell me if they've seen a fox or if there's deer or bear or whatever that's crept out that we don't want to hunt. The hounds here are very, very good. They're very true to fox. They won't hunt anything other than a fox. But certainly early on in the season when we're training puppies, you need those guys out front making sure that they don't hunt anything that they ought not to be. So that's the first group, and then what we have is the masters. The 3 masters will take different. We have 3 different levels of riders. So we have what we call the first field, and they basically go everywhere I go. They run and jump and gallop and go everywhere where I go. Then we have a second flight, and they run everywhere, try to stay as close to us as we can, but they don't jump, so they'll just for a little slightly more timid riders. And then we have a third flight, which is basically kids and old people that don't want, they either can't or don't want to run anymore, but they'll the nickname for the third flight is hilltoppers. So they'll basically get up into a high point and try and, they'll walk and trot and maybe canter a little bit, but they'll basically try and get into vantage points so they can experience the hunt and see the hunt and hear the hunt, but not go full bore, basically, galloping around like crazy people like we do.
So how many horses total would go on a hunt then? Well, I guess it depends how many people go, but what's an average?
Yeah, an average, I would say probably 30 would be an average. So the high days and bye days down here in America, the Thanksgiving, and it was the same in London. It always attracted a lot more people. People like to be there. But we have our Thanksgiving meet here, and we have it at Grace Church up the road, and the hounds get blessed. And it's a very big thing. It's on the TV and everything. We probably get, on a good day, probably 70, 80 horses at that. And then there's probably several hundred people at the church all there for the blessing of the hounds as well. So it's still quite a big thing. And it was the same in London. It was a huge thing in London. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of people that would be at the hunt club in London just to see us parade the hounds there. So it's kind of cool. It's a nice tradition. But yeah, we've had as many. Especially if you do. So sometimes we'll have hunt clubs that join together and have what they call like a joint meet, where there's 3 or 4 different hunt clubs within fairly close proximity to us here, and we've had as many as 120 horses out, which is chaos. It's too many.
Oh,
it really is. It's too many. Back in England, you'd see some of the really big hunt clubs in England. It's nothing for them to have 150 horses on a weekly basis. So you think in England, so they hunt a lot longer in England in terms of how long they're out. So generally, some of the bigger hunts in England will have what they call a second horse. So they'll hunt until, generally we meet at 10 o'clock. So they'll hunt until maybe 1:32. And then at 1:30 or 2 o'clock, they'll have a designated area where they're going to change horses, and they'll have a second horse at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. So some of those big hunts in England that have got 150 horses, at one point, there will be 300 horses in a field, all changing while everyone gets onto their fresh mounts and away they'll go again and carry on hunting again.
That's amazing, Paul. Jesus.
Oh, I mean, just
Just
to see
fascinating.
this, it's like, it the likes you wouldn't have seen since, back in the days when they were still having wars with horses, basically, battles with horses on horseback. I mean, it's a fantastic, you see all of the horses that are tired, and then all of their grooms they'll be riding, and sometimes riding and leading second, and some families have two or three horses, and the grooms will be bringing two or three horses at once, and it's phenomenal to see. I mean, really, just very dramatic. But over here in the colonies, not quite so much. It's not quite,
That colony.
not quite as fancy as that. But yeah, it's people that enjoy it and they have a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of people, you get the animal rights crowd, and the amount of foxes we actually catch is pretty minimal. The
Mhm.
sport in it is watching the hounds and listening to the hounds. 95% of the time, the fox gets in a hole. Occasionally, they'll catch one, and it's normally an old, stupid, or sick one, basically, which would have gotten taken out anyway. I mean, there's probably 100 times the amount that get killed on a road from traffic accidents than what we actually catch. So I think it's a non-starter on when aunties start going on about how it's cruel. It's really, the fox has all the advantages. He knows exactly. We're not releasing a fox in foreign areas. It's purely foxes we find out in the open, and they have the advantage. They know exactly where they're going. Just right now, I mean, we haven't had rain in probably, I want to say, probably 5 6 weeks. And I mean, as a hound guy, you'll know scenting conditions when it's this dry are just abysmal, terrible. Um, and the hounds are really, really struggling. I mean, the other day we were out at a place, and the whole field, all the mounted field, saw this fox trot right down through this one pasture, and we took the hounds through it, and the hounds were just like, just crickets,
Nothing.
not nothing, absolutely nothing. Couldn't smell a damn thing. Those foxes know that. I mean, they're hunters themselves, right? A
Right.
fox is a predator, so he knows when he's looking for his own dinner. Crap, I can't smell anything. So he knows that when he's being pursued by something else, it's like, yeah, I think I'm pretty safe today, boys. So it's they'll only run as long as they want to run, and sometimes we can run one for an hour, and he'll find a hole, and sometimes he'll run for 10 minutes and say, yeah, no, sorry guys, don't fancy my exercise routine today. It's kind of like exercising them. So I've had a pretty fortunate, blessed life, however which way you want to say it. I mean, this is like 31st season doing this job.
How did you get started in this?
So my grandma's brother was was a very prominent what they call kennel huntsman. Now, back in England, back in the day, you'd have sometimes instead of having a professional huntsman, you'd have one of the masters who was very wealthy, liked to hunt the hounds. So they would employ what they call a kennel huntsman, which he would assist the master in hunting the hounds. So he was basically, in essence, a huntsman, but he kind of he was like, I don't know, looking after the old boy that was hunting the hounds kind of thing. So he was what they call a kennel huntsman for a very famous pack, the Puckeridge in Herefordshire in England. And he was there, I think he was there something like 50 years. I mean, the guy was a bit of a legend. His name was Ned Paxton. And we went down there a couple of times with my mum and my grandma and met him. And I was only just a wee nipper back then. And he would tell all these stories about back in the kennels about all the hounds and stuff. And back in England, we the hounds were fed on fallen stock, i.e., dead animals. Right. So if you're a cattle farmer or you're a sheep farmer and you have a cow die or a sheep die, you'd ring up the local hunt and we'd come and pick it up, take it back to the kennels, and we'd have a big skinning area and butchering area, and we'd skin it down, and join it all up. And he'd be telling me stories about how him and his daughter could skin a horse in about 15 minutes and stuff like that. And most kids would probably be absolutely horrified and grossed
Yeah.
out by it. And I'm like, all right, yeah, this is wicked. Tell me more about how you chop up a dead horse, and it just kind of stemmed from there. So when I left school, I went to college for a little while and went, nah, that's not me. And I dodged around in the horse world for a little bit, doing some show jumpers and stuff like that. And was thinking, yeah, that wasn't scratching the itch either. And then a job came up looking after hunt horses, but not actually at the kennels. It was a what they call a Highland yard. So in England, there's places where their business is basically hiring horses for a day. So you can go hunting if you're capable enough rider. You can just go and hire a horse for the day to go hunting rather than having the expense of, you know, the expense of a horse, which is
Owning a horse, yeah.
bloody
Of
expensive.
course, yeah.
So you pay 300 pounds for to hire the horse for the day. You can go fox hunting, and that's what you do. So I went and worked for um, a lady that did that, and I stayed there for a year and thought, yeah, I wanted to get more involved with the dogs and the hounds as they're always called. They're always referred to as hounds. So then I went from there to the West Country in England, to the East Devon, and started off at the bottom there as chief poop shoveler, and but it was both. So
We
I
all do that.
basically, yeah, no kidding. But that's a whole pile of poop. Um, so yeah, I was kennelman, what I call they called me kennelman slash groom. So I looked after all the horses and the hounds. So it was a lot. I think we had back then. I think we probably had at least 5 or 6 horses that I had to look after completely, and then all the kennels and all the skinning, and there was only 2 of us. So it was a lot. I mean, it was big dairy country, so they'd have tremendous amounts of cattle coming in, a lot of cows. There was a lot of, and I didn't even pass my test at that point, so I couldn't drive. So Nick, who was the huntsman at the time, he would go out and pick everything up, which was the easy part. And then, I'd be back home juggling between, exercising horses, doing all of that, and then in the flesh house skinning cows until 10 o'clock at night, butcher and stuff. So it was long, long hours, long, long. I remember one Christmas Eve, we were in there till 11 o'clock at night throwing snowballs at each other. I mean, it was just crazy, busy, but I wouldn't have changed it. I mean, it taught me a lot of valuable stuff.
Of course.
And then just slowly made my way up through the ranks. I went from there to further southwest towards Plymouth, down the southwest of England. And that was my first whip range position. And I lived in a mobile home at the kennels. I think I got paid like 25 quid a week. And then I got as a bonus, I got to keep all of the sheepskins, which probably summed to about, I don't know, like an extra 5 quid a week, something like that. It was really, they weren't worth a whole pile, like, but it was a bit of something.
Sure.
And then from there, I went to up to the Lake District, up in the Lake District, the northwest of England, to the Vale of Loon, and they were a pack of Harriers, stud book Harriers, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The Harriers, they're a nice breed, lovely, lovely breed. Cheery little hounds. I like them a lot. Stayed there a little while, and then from there I
How
went
many
up.
harriers would be there?
I think we had roughly about. I think there was about 30 couple, 25, 30 couple, so between 50 and 60.
Wow, it's bigger than the national specialty.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't
Yeah.
think that would be terribly hard, would it? I don't think there's that many Harriers. Period, is there?
There's a few up here in Canada. We had our last year. We had our Harrier and Foxhound specialty in Aldi, Virginia, and I'm not sure how many they drew. Maybe 20. I don't know. So
Yeah, yeah. There's a lady I remember when we were at Vale of Loon. She has a place out west. I'm not entirely sure which state. I think it's like Arizona or New Mexico. Um, and she has a pack of hounds that she hunts, but she also does quite a lot of showing. Is it the Kingsbury Harriers?
well,
I
that
want to
sounds
say that.
yeah, that's a famous kennel. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say Kingsbury. But yeah, she actually came over when we were there and took some hounds, some stud hounds back with her. But I
Wow.
think she took some Vale of Loon hounds, and I think the big hounds that were winning a lot in the particular hound shows back then were the two main packs that were the ones to beat were Pendle Forest and Craven, and the High Peak Carriers. Those two were like the two kind of premium packs for winning. They'd win a tremendous amount of hound shows. So Vale of Loon were kind of a little bit, second tier. We had some nice ones, but they weren't as fancy and as pretty as the other two big major packs. So then from there, I went to Fife in Scotland, the Fife Foxhounds, and was a whipper in there for a couple of seasons, which is where I met
Explain what a
Yvonne.
whipperin is again.
So the huntsman's assistant,
Okay.
basically, the grunt, do all the grunt work. So I was a whipper in at the Fife, which is where I met Yvonne. So Yvonne was, well, I didn't meet her in Scotland. So my brother was doing the same jobs down in Yorkshire, and she was working for a lady down in Yorkshire that was a big fox hunting yard. And my brother was a kennelman down there in the Beedale hunt. And every year they have something called a puppy show. And the puppy show is basically it's a very very British thing. All the gentlemen wear bowler hats and whatnot, and pinstripe suits, and drink Pims. And they have a show area, and basically they call it a puppy show, but the pups are 18 months old. They're mature hounds. So in England, the hounds are as puppies. They're sent out to farms and stables to get to know their names and to see things. And then they come back to the kennels when they're 6, 7 months old, once they've learnt their names and seen horses and pigs and sheep and chickens and stuff. Um, and those people that look after them, they're called puppy walkers. So it's kind of a double-edged thing. So when those puppies are 18 months old, they have this show, and it's a confirmation show, and they normally invite a master from a neighbouring hunt and a huntsman from a neighbouring hunt, and they judge them confirmationally, and they're awarded prizes, and the prizes go to the people who walk them. And then they have afternoon tea afterwards, cucumber sandwiches, pims, the whole 9 yards. So this was my brother's puppy show at the Beedale, and I met Yvonne there, so that we kind of ended up cohabitating with one another. And then when I left Fife, we moved to Ireland together, and that's when we kind of got together. So then, obviously, I'm in Ireland then in County Kildare, still whippering, still doing all the grunt work. We
How
stayed
old were
there.
you at this point, Paul?
23.
Wow, just a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, still a nipper. And then from Ireland, we went to Rome, Italy. Um, we got so the guy that I was whipping into in Kildare was a fella called Peter Feeney, and the master in Rome had said, would you be interested in coming to Rome and hunting the Rome foxhounds? And he said, oh hell no, no, I'm an Irish boy. I'm gonna, live and die in Ireland. I'm not going anywhere, kind of thing. So he said, but I do have a young whipper in. He says that I think is probably ready to take on the job of a huntsman. He says, if you want to give him a call, he's a young guy, he's got nothing to lose, kind of thing. So they called me up and said, would you like to come out and have a look? So Yvonne and I chatted, and we're like, what the hell, you're only young once.
Right.
So I jumped on a plane and had a look and thought, yeah, why not? So it was back in, what was that, 2000? 2000, and yeah, it must have been 2000. It was the year that they had foot and mouth in England, and that was pretty epic, because I basically flew out from Ireland to Italy, and kind of just to get to know the pack, because the guy that I was taking over from was still there. So he needed to be there to show me all the, everything I needed to see, all the water, how to get water and all the rest of it. how they fed and that kind of stuff, and more importantly, just all the hounds' names, right? Because you don't just roll there and say, oh yeah, there's 60 hounds, boom.
Couldn't imagine. Wow.
So I landed there
And
and I
you
had
know
like
all your 60 hounds, you would know all their names then.
I know all the names, know all of the parents' names, and probably all the pedigrees.
Wow.
It's a geeky kind of hound thing. I mean, it's no different than you with your setters and whatnot, but it's just on a much bigger scale, right?
Yeah.
And I have a real the advantage that the Master of Foxhounds, which is the governing body for all the foxhounds, has a website and they have a database with all the pedigrees on, so I can just pull one up at a blink of an eye. If I'm looking at certain qualities on different hounds and whatnot, I can just pull it up and just see if there's a good match or not if I want to do a breeding and stuff. So that's kind of handy. So, but yeah, so we get there, and I had like 3 or 4 days to learn all of the hounds. So it was kind of that in itself, it. I think when you've been in the game a little while, you kind of learn a few tricks as to how to learn the names quickly. And I would always just have like a little notepad and just, this is this hound, and write a little note. Looked like so and so from the last pack, you know. And it just helped me get to learn them a lot quicker. So I'm in Italy there, and all sorted. Meanwhile, Yvonne is back in Ireland getting everything packed up to come to Ireland, to Italy. And fortunate or unfortunate, however which way you want to look at it, because of the foot and mouth. Some good friends of Yvonne's, they typically would have been fox hunting at that time of year, but because everything was shut down, they couldn't go anywhere. It's kind of a bit like pandemic, really, in some ways. So they said, look, we've got a horse lorry, like a 4 horse lorry. We'll come over to Ireland. We'll come and load, because Yvonne had her horse, and then we had our own dogs and terriers and whatnot. And the amount of furniture that we had. So basically, Yvonne and uh, uh, her 2 friends basically all jumped in the truck and came back through England and then all the way through France, which was pretty terrifying. They had a couple of blowouts on the way there because it was the lorry was so loaded up with so much stuff. So they had 2 big blowouts. So she's in the middle of France with a blowout in an English truck that the French were all fully aware of, that England had foot and mouth. So she was absolutely petrified that
Sure.
that the French were going to stone her to death because you know. Let alone the poor horse. The horse was not supposed to have come off the lorry through the whole period of time. And I think they did at one point. I think they snuck him off, um,
How
just so
long a
he could.
trip would that be? How long would that take?
It's like a couple of days, I think.
Yeah.
It was a couple of days. But I think they took him off at one point and let him have some grass and a quick pee. Because I don't know if you know much about horses, but generally they don't like to, on the move. They don't like to pee or anything like that. They like to be on solid terra firma. So basically, um, yeah, they rolled up, and there's a few stories I could tell you right now, but probably not. Where we were was an interesting part of Rome. It was basically on the Appia Nuova, sorry, the Appia Antica, which is, if you've ever seen the movie Spartacus, it's where they hang all of all the people when the Romans were there. So the kennels were right on that road, and that road was known for some nefarious things that went along there, and it was, yeah, some interesting stuff, shall we? Um, so yeah, so Yvonne landed, and yeah, we were there almost 5 years, and Giacomo was conceived there and born there, and that was interesting. The Italians, even not that long ago, kind of it was like the step back in time. I mean, back in England and Canada would be the same. You give birth to your baby and it's with you and whatnot. In Rome, Italy, they had them in these big, huge creches that were air conditioned, and the actual wards were not air conditioned. So it's like 100 degrees in the middle of August, and there's no air conditioning. So the babies were in these air conditioned areas in these creches, and It was just bizarre, really, really bizarre. I mean, I loved Italy. Was just such a wonderful place, a fantastic country, but so backward in so many ways. So backwards. I mean, when we went to register Giacomo's birth, I was expecting like we go down and there'd be, some lady sitting behind a computer. And we went in there and they have these huge, great big 3 foot tall ledgers and everything's written down in
Oh,
ledgers still.
jeez.
Yeah, I mean, literally. I mean, it was like, what are we, like the 17th century here? Insane, crazy, crazy. So yeah, so next skip was from there. We came to Pennsylvania. We to a small pack in Pennsylvania, and the guy there was an absolute fruit loop, absolute lunatic. So we only stayed there a year, um, and that's when we came to Hamilton. We came to Hamilton, Ontario. We were there a couple of years and I had an absolute blast. Loved it at Hamilton. It was such a nice club. But then kind of got headhunted by the London, which was the next door pack, for more money, better house, bigger country, bigger hunt country to hunt. So it was kind of a no brainer. So we stayed there for 10 years. Um, I just yeah, we had so much fun there, and then this job came up, and you know, Canada has its limitations doing what I do. It's a short season. The winter comes in way too
It's in the
quick.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, basically. I mean, if to be honest, if Canada didn't, there was one year. I mean, I think it was like the 28th of October. We got like 2 foot of snow in London. It was like, are you kidding me? You know, and like here we will go through till March, right? So it's a bit of a
Oh,
no-brainer.
yeah.
I mean, if they could have, if we could have hunted until even maybe February, it would have been something. But I was, still a relatively young man. I'm not old and decrepit yet, so I'd like to still kind of kick on a little bit for a little bit longer yet. So this job came up. I knew the guy that I was taking over from, and I knew the bloodlines of a lot of the hounds. So it was silly for me not to take opportunity to come here. It was kind of, and like I said, there's only limited packs in Canada to go to. There's only like 5 or 6 packs really, and of those 5 or 6 packs, there's only three really that have professional huntsmen anymore.
Well, I would think Virginia would be kind of like the mecca down there of
It is.
yeah.
It is absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, Maryland, Virginia are certainly the pinnacle of North American fox hunting for sure. But it's got its pluses and its minuses. There's a lot of money here, and there's a lot of money people here, and there's some beautiful properties. But the downside of that is doing what we do. There's so much development. We're losing a lot of hunt territories due to development, and it's just too perilous. There's just too many roads. You
Mhm.
know, so that is the big major downside to it. Is it's typical America. It's everything. All the population is accumulated on the east and west coasts, right? So I mean, there's some fantastic country out west. I mean, Colorado, Kansas, some beautiful, massive, big country, huge tract of land that you could gallop and run all day long. But there's not the population and there's not the money. So you need people with deep pockets for this game because it's expensive. Horses are expensive. Everything's expensive. So you have to kind of go. It's a trade off, basically. It's a trade off. So it is what it is. I mean, there's still a lot of beautiful country around, but it's getting
Getting
tighter and
smaller.
tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting tighter and tighter. I mean, we use GPS collars on all of the hounds, so that gives us a good kind of safeguard. We've just switched to a different system. We were with Garmin, which is probably the most common one, but we've just switched to another system, which it's made by a company called Dogtra. Um, and the system is called Pathfinder 2. And the beauty about that is it basically runs, it's a GPS system that runs basically through your phone. And the one the really great thing about that is it has basically a geofence facility on it. So you can basically, where we're going to hunt for the day, and we hunt in a couple of really, really tight areas. One that's way too close to a railroad track than I would rather it was. But I can basically form a geofence around that area so that if the hounds go anywhere near it, they start getting a warning. It's kind of just basically like somebody's invisible fence around the yard.
Yeah, that's
So the
incredible.
hound, so the hounds are all tone trained, or starting to be tone trained. We started this year with a lot of the pups, and if it, and it basically works in the same way. They'll get a tone, and the closer and closer they get, the stimulation gets hotter and hotter to a point where they get a full on zap if they get too close. So it's technology is taking part in something that's an 18th century sport. We live in the
Yeah, I would
21st.
never have guessed that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we've got that. That is a very valuable tool to us. Is being just having that know-how and having that kind of backup of when we're hunting. I'm constantly counting the hounds. So in a typical day when we're hunting, I'll take anywhere between 30 and 40 hounds. Is somewhere around about that. And we count them in couples, so we always refer to them in couples. So we count them in couples, and we're counting constantly throughout the day. But every now and again, you can make a miscount. So it's nice for me to be able to just pick out my phone and just quickly scroll through, and it'll pull up the map, and it'll say dog number 15 is half a mile to the right, and I can just quickly either give it a tone or Mike, the guy, the kennelman, is in the truck, so I can quickly say to him, "Hey, look, there's a hound over in such and such an area. Can you slip round and go grab him if he's gotten left behind?" So it's a nice peace of mind for us,
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
it's a nice bit of kit. So it keeps us out of the danger zone at least, anyway.
Yeah, sure. Now, you're in charge of breeding the animals as well, the dogs?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I consult. I always consult with the masters, and just it's more of just keeping them in the loop. I think they trust me enough to know that I know the bloodlines, and I know where I'm trying to get to, and where we need to be. The whole development thing with the way the country's getting tighter and tighter. We're trying to get it so that we don't want a super super quick hound. Because if they're super super quick, they end up putting too much pressure on the fox. A fox will only run as quick as it's pushed. So if you have a really really hard driving hound that really gets right up on the fox will either go to ground super quick, or he's going to blast out the area where we're not allowed to be. So we're at a point now where back in the day, we had a lot more territory. You could probably have a quicker hound, but it's like everything else, because the territories are shrinking. We need more biddable hounds that can deal with, because it's like anything. If you constantly have to stop something, so if, hounds do this because they love what they do. It's not because they want to get a chance to kill something at the end of it, because 99% of the time they don't. They do it because they love doing it. But if you constantly are having to stop them all the time, I think it just breaks their hearts. You don't want to constantly have to keep stopping them. You get a field out, and it's like, all right, lads, we gotta stop this. We gotta shut it down because it's going in a wrong direction. So if we breed hounds that are too quick, then that becomes more of an issue. So, but at the same time, we don't want to be at a point where we're just woofing along at 2 mile an hour. So you've got to kind of, you know, you want to breed hounds. You want to breed hounds with what we call drive. They want that ability to take them forward. But like the mental drive, not the physical drive, the mental drive to want to push them forward, but not so much that they're going to push the game too hard.
Well, it's like a good show dog policy. You have ones with heart that want to do it. So it's the same
Exactly.
idea. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So we don't want to get into a situation where we're like, oh, we don't want to push, we don't want to push, and you end up keep making these matings that you end up with hounds that just have no gusto at all and no drive. So, all different variations of that drive is they're all important because you might have a female that has a tremendous amount of drive, almost too much drive. I'd be inclined to use a dog that is an extremely good dog, maybe has a super low scenting ability. It can smell in really poor scenting conditions. And you put that dog on that bitch with a super high drive, you're going to get more of a happy medium. My thing is, I've always, and it doesn't matter whether it's with hounds or with the terriers or anything else, the emphasis has to be on the bitch. The bitch, I don't think people give enough emphasis on the bitch, and it's the same reason why racehorse guys will spend $12 million on a broodmare. There is so much, and there are some sires that are more prepotent than others for sure. But I think there is a huge. I always put a huge emphasis on a bitch. I think if I'm going to make a breeding and I have the option of an average bitch with a brilliant dog or a brilliant bitch with an average dog, I will go with a brilliant bitch with an average dog every day of the week.
Interesting.
That's my personal thoughts. I think I don't think people make enough emphasis on the female line. I think it's super important. Um, and the fact that when I'm selecting a breeding, I look at the whole family. You see a lot of, you can have one exceptional hound that's brilliant, and all the rest are absolute duds. That's not really, for me. That's not a good prospect.
Right.
Doesn't matter how exceptional that one hound is. If the rest of the litter are duds, that to me that's not good enough odds. If he's one of eight, you know, that's one good and seven duds. I don't need to be breeding that kind of litter. I'd rather have a litter of eight pups and six of them make it. Six of them are all really really good, and two are duds. I'd be more inclined to go with a dog from that breed than I would that exceptional one, because that one exceptional one is likely just a freak.
Yeah. Fluke. Yeah.
Yeah,
We get that in dog shows as well. You know that. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
those are
absolutely.
American foxhounds you have?
Yeah, yeah. So these are uh they're kind of they're different to what you would see in the show ring. These are they're a strain that's been bred originally from Culpeper County, which is just north of here, and the guy that started them off was a guy called Frank Burrell Bywaters back in 1890s. And this specific strain is from those lines. So they're not quite as. I mean, if you're looking at a show American Foxhound, these probably would not. They're not even closely resemble them in a lot of ways. Some of them are. Some of them are a little bit
Yeah.
racier and a bit more like a show hound. But what we see in the working American Foxhound ring would be very, very different from what you would see in the show world. But I like them. I like them. They're really really smart breed. Um, they're super biddable. They've got beautiful voices, beautiful big voices on them. Very very good noses, which like we were just saying earlier on. The scenting right now is just dreadful, and we're able to make something of a day. Whereas a lot of packs that didn't have that extra nose that we have would be just basically it would be a trail ride with dogs, because there's just the hounds just can't scent anything.
Right.
And in my opinion, if my hounds can't smell much, then there's pretty much nobody's hounds are going to smell them. They've got a pretty good deep scent.
How does the day end then? So you're out in the hunt, and then you've decided that that's enough. How does it end?
So basically, if we, depending on the day, I mean, right now with these poor scenting conditions, we'll go out for 2.5, 3 hours maybe. Um, and you get to a point where you're flogging a dead horse, literally. I mean, it's, if the hounds can't, if they find a fox and can't run it when it's 2 or 3 seconds old, you're really, you're on a hiding to nothing. So, people have spent a lot of time producing their horses and getting themselves ready for the day. So, it may be the fact that that might be the only time they get out for a couple of months. So you still got to kind of, even though it could be for me personally, it could be a crappy day because the hounds really can't smell anything. You still have to think of the members that have come out and have have put the effort in to make sure that the horse is all nicely turned out and they've turned out. So you still have to kind of make a bit of a show of it. So I mean, even when it's poor scenting, we still got to kind of take them for a bit of a jolly and try and keep them happy, and then we'll scooch back around and kind of eventually make a big loop and go back to the trailers, and then afterwards we'll have like a tailgate, and people bring snacks and sandwiches and stuff and drinks, and we have like a little bit of a meeting afterwards. But on a better scenting day, I mean, sometimes it can be, we can find a really good running fox that'll run us for an hour, and everyone's horses are completely shot. They've gone flat to the boards, they've jumped 20 fences, nobody has any horsepower left, and it's like, well, guys, we might as well, just call it quits. So it just, there's no 2 days that are the same, and I think that's what I like about this job as well, is that, you know, there really isn't any 2 days the same. There's no predictability about it at all. You know, it could go many of different ways. you know,
When you
so
bring the pack back to the kennel, how do you cool them down? What do you do?
so we get back to the trailers, and I'll do like on the way back. We normally do like a head count. So as we're walking back to the trailers, I have a list. So basically, I have a printed list of all the hounds' names and the hounds that are going to hunt on a particular day. I have I just highlight them, and then each of the collars has a number on the collar, so we know where they all are at any one time. So we'll basically, between myself and the whipper-ins, we'll just cross them off as we're walking along, and I take a photograph on my phone and I'll just shout the names out, and as we're riding along, if someone spots that hound, here, 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 and then when we get back, if there's any missing, I'll quickly jump in the truck. Mike will take the main pack back with the horse because they travel in one big trailer. We have a gooseneck. Hounds go in the front part and the horses go in the back. Um, and if I'm missing a hound, I'll switch vehicles. Michael, the kennelman, he'll take the truck and trailer back with the hounds and the horses. And I'll quickly go find whichever hound it is that's missing. He'll go back, and then we'll let the hounds off the trailers. We take all the collars off, and they'll just chill out for 10 minutes, and then we put them all back in together, and then I'll feed them when we get back. We always feed when we get back. I don't feed before. We don't want them running around on
Oh,
full
for
stomach.
sure. Now, do you ever lose one overnight? Like, have you
It's
ever?
funny to mention that. So I've just come back this morning. We lost a hound about 7 weeks ago. We were hunting, and despite having the GPS collar on him, GPS collar was not giving us any signal. Went for days upon days searching for him, calling for him. And I was all pretty much resigned to the fact that he was gone. Either somebody had, there's a lot of coon guys and deer hunters
Oh,
that,
sure, yeah.
you know, that would steal a hound. I know it sounds horrible, but they would. And, the fact that, those GPS collars are $350 a piece. So they see a hound wandering around with a $300 necklace around its neck. It's not uncommon for them to suddenly disappear. So I thought either he'd been picked up and stolen, for whatever reason, either by deer hunters or some, good meaning general member of the public that think, all hunters abuse their dogs kind of thing. Oh, let's take him out of that system. So I thought either that had happened or he'd been hit on the road. The collar was no longer functioning. I drove around for days looking for him, looking in ditches to see if he'd been hit. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I was resigned to the fact that he was gone. And then about 2 weeks ago, where we released him, where we met that particular day, the farmer there was bringing in corn and said he'd seen him. And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, no, honest to God, Paul, we've seen him. So been back up and forwards a couple of times. And the last time I went, I took my hunting horn because the hounds are all trained for a hunting horn. If you blow the hunting horn, they'll come in. And we came around. I came around the farm buildings, and there's a like a corn crib there, and some old hay in the corner, and he'd made a nest in the corner. And I came around, and he took off. And I called him. I said, "Hey, war cry, war cry!" And he kind of looked at me and got all kind of sheepish and just took off running. And he he took off running, and I'm like, well, this is he'd been out 5 weeks maybe.
Wow.
And actually, amazingly, didn't look like a bag of bones. I mean, I don't know where he was getting fed, whether he was just eating deer carcass. I mean, we're in the middle of deer season, so
Right.
he could have just been eating deer carcasses or whatever. But he looked amazingly well. So I'm in this conundrum of like, what the hell do we do now? Because he's basically feral. He's completely feral. So fast forward a couple of weeks, and about 10 days ago, I managed to chat with a friend who knew a trapper who had some coyote traps, like a live have a heart trap that was big enough that would take a hound. I said, well, he's obviously going back to that area. Maybe if we set up this big coyote trap, maybe we can catch him in that. So it's been baited for 10 days. And this morning I got a phone call from one of our members who's been checking on it and said he was in there. So 7 weeks after him being gone, went hunting with us, he was in the trap, but completely feral. I
Yeah. What
thought,
do you, what do you do?
so, I thought it'd be like, you see all of these like, lad Bible things of like dogs that have been gone for, and they come wagging up to the owners. No, he wanted to eat me, basically.
Yeah.
Wolf. He was sitting in there and he was like, hey, Walker, how you doing? And I put my hand up on the cage to sniff it, and he curled his lip and went, "Rrr," and I'm like, oh, all right, fair enough. And then started barking at me and going at me, and I'm like, oh, crap. So we got him out of the crate, put him out of the trap and into one of my crates, and he seemed a little bit his eyes seemed a little bit softer and a little bit happier. We got him back here, and I put him in one of the separate lodges right next to the hot bitch pen. And I figured, well, a couple of saucy females next door,
Right.
if that don't bring him out, he shall nothing will. And Yvonne just came in earlier on when I came in here and said that he's kind of wagging his tail and was licking Mike. So he's finally
Oh,
like
oh, good.
the penny has dropped.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, that's to answer. I mean, in 30 seasons, I've never had that happen. That's
That's
the first
amazing.
time but 7 weeks afterwards now, he still looks relatively well. The only one thing I will say, he is covered in ticks. So that's going to be my first thing is we'll have to give him a good dousing full of permethrin, get rid of all the ticks, and then I'll probably start him on a course of doxycycline just purely because of the amount of ticks that have been on him. Because good chance he's probably going to be generating some Lyme's disease, I would imagine. So
Well,
we'll hit him with that. But yeah, I'm absolutely dumbfounded and thrilled to have found him because I thought he was gone.
it's amazing
And
he came back to where he was released from. So it's
yeah. I mean, we had that happen once when we were in Italy. And we didn't, back in Italy, we never had our own horse and hound transport. We used to get picked up by a company. Then they had a big, huge horse transporting lorry that kept like 12 horses on it. And they used to have a huge section in the front that the hounds used to go in. And then they would pick us up, and then they'd go around 3 or 4 different stables in and around Rome and pick the members' horses up from there and then go to the meet. So the hounds were it's not like they kind of memorized where they were going or whatever. But the one time we'd been, I can't remember how far away it was. It was a decent way away from where the kennels were. And when we'd finished, there was a little side door on the truck that hadn't been shut properly. And we were driving along what they call the GRA, the Grande Ricordo Anulare, which is basically the big, massive ring road around Rome. It's like 4 lanes, 5 lanes, huge. It's kind of like, 401 around Toronto. And the door, I happened to look out the side of the door, the mirror on the truck, and I said, "Look, the door's open to the driver," and he's like, "Oh crap!" So we quickly pulled over, did a quick head count, and what we thought was all there, but one hound had come out. Don't know how. And that the GRA, there is like huge fencing all the way around it, and we're like, "He's dead. He's got to be dead." Yet again, we drove up and down that road a million times, not a sight, no sound. And that would have been like on the Wednesday, and then Saturday night would have been Friday night, early Saturday morning. We were in bed, and all of a sudden the hounds are going absolutely berserk. And sure enough, the hound had rolled up back at the kennels.
Jeez.
No idea, no. And there's been bunches of stories of this happening all through the annals of time of these hounds just making massive journeys. Packs have gone to visit with other packs, and they've lost them during that point, and then they've made it 100 miles across country back to their kennels, almost like a homing pigeon.
Yeah.
So yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
I'm running out of time, but I can't thank you enough for this. Is amazing, man. I didn't. It's amazing to be let into your world a little bit, because I'm sure there's so many people that had no idea this really even existed. So
yeah, no, pretty crazy.
I might have to do a part 2 with you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you need to come down and stay with us, and then we do a guided tour, and you can come and see all the hounds and do a live show or something.
Well, that'd be awesome, cool. Wouldn't it? Wow.
Because I know you do enough traveling down here. It wouldn't be the end of the world for you to swing by.
No, exactly.
We got somewhere for you to stay. We got a spare kennel you could go dust down with.
I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
We'll put you in with a hot bitch as well. We'll put you in with a hot bitch.
Nice.
Your reputation precedes you all the time.
Okay.
Oh dear God.
Oh well, thanks, Paul. That was amazing, and I can't thank you enough. That was a great hour. That was, I'm sure the viewers are going to be amazed. So
yeah. Well, look me up. I'm on Facebook. If you go on, a lot of the younger people will be on TikTok. If you look up Hounds or Us on TikTok, I got a bunch of. Amazingly, there's that medium is like. I have like 1.1 million kind of likes on Hounds or Us in TikTok. There's a couple of huge, big viral videos that have got millions of views on it, which who'd have thought? I thought it was just a bunch of teenage girls twerking on there, but apparently no, not so much.
I'll have to take a look though. Hounds or Us.
Right. Yeah, Hounds or Us. Yeah, and there's a bunch on there, and I did have a decent following on Instagram, but then Instagram, somebody robbed my account and stole it, and I couldn't get it back in the metasphere, whatever they call. They weren't having any of it, so I had to restart again. So I don't have very many people on Instagram.
But TikTok, I'll check that out.
Yeah, no twerking. There's no young girls twerking. Okay,
I don't want to see you twerking either.
Yeah, no, that's a nasty thought. Real nasty thought.
All right, man. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I know we had this scheduled last week, and something came up. Is that horse is okay this week? All is good?
Yeah, no, we're all good. We're all good, and everything's in good shape, so we're good to go. But get your butt down here. Come on down.
Sounds great, man. All right, appreciate it, Paul, and give my best to Yvonne and Giacomo, and I'll talk to you soon. All
right, man. Take it easy.
You too, brother. Totally amazing. Thank you, Paul. I can't say how happy I am that we did this, because it's going to amaze people. If you like what you see here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button, and don't forget about the podcast every Thursday with Wayne Kavanaugh, the Dog Show Drive. Talk to you guys soon.